On this Christmas morning, as we continue our developing news, breaking news coverage of a huge explosion. Nick Barrett's in the 5 Alert Center. Nick, I understand you have spoken with a witness. What have you learned?
Yeah, Roy, this is getting to the heart of the question of what was it exactly that led law enforcement to believe that this RV on 2nd Avenue was suspicious? What drew them to that location and why? And it's really a critical question being asked right now, and I think we have some answers to that question. I talked about it earlier in one of my live hits, and now we have one of the witnesses, a resident who lives right down there, joining us on the phone right now to talk about what it was she saw. And this, folks, is very interesting. Let me make sure we've got her on the line. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. If you would, real quickly, could you please give us an idea of where you live, proximity to this RV, and then we'll get into what happened this morning.
Okay, I live at 166 2nd Avenue North. That's the building where the melting pot is located and Rodizio. And the RV was parked right outside of our window. We're on the 3rd floor, and the RV was directly across the street from our apartment.
Okay, so now let's go to what you told me and what I know authorities are looking into as well. It was around 5 or 5:30 this morning that you were awakened, and walk me through it to the sound of gunshots initially.
Exactly. Between 5 and 5:30 a.m., we heard very loud gunshots, repetitive, like 5 to 6 shots. I'm not sure, but very loud, and that woke us up. But we
responded, and after assessing the vehicle, had reason to call our hazardous devices unit. The hazardous devices unit was en route to the downtown area when an explosion linked to that vehicle took place at 6:30. The explosion was significant, as you can see from the street there on 2nd Avenue. Now, the police department, its federal partners, the FBI, ATF, are conducting a large-scale investigation to this point. We do believe that the explosion was an intentional act. Our federal partners continue to join us here at the scene this morning, and this investigation will be taking place throughout the day. Our police officers, with the assistance of the Tennessee Highway Patrol, are conducting a shutdown, if you will, of the downtown area while we assess this entire situation. So traffic in the downtown area.
That's a man and his dog. They've stopped. Now you'll see the officer come in from the right side. And the officer's speaking to him. Now listen to me. Keep listening. I don't know if you understand what was being said. Upstairs, you guys have a better audio up there. Are you hearing what exactly is being said? Because that would be interesting. Okay, there's the officer right there moving back. The bravery that was displayed in downtown Nashville this morning is nothing short of incredible to me. It gives me the chills to see the way these folks were operating in such a dangerous situation. And after the bomb blows up, he goes back toward the blast.
Heard a couple of big loud bangs, and that's ugly looking orange cloud, to be honest. It's not even black, it's orange.
What is that?
Large explosion occurs at steel plant in Hamilton, Ontario. That was the last clip you just saw. And what you see up on the screen, I had placed it at the bottom. Explosion at Stelco complex in Hamilton. Now again, this was up in Canada. A large explosion occurs at steel plant in Hamilton, Ontario. Let's go back and see the other footage.
Heard a couple of big loud bangs, and That's ugly looking orange cloud, to be honest. It's not even black, it's orange.
What is that?
Which one's you moving? Which one we expand? Huh?
You need to get yourselves back in your car because we're now getting to the point where we're going to start moving.
No.
The only people that, if people want to leave,
How many people here? 20? How many people here? Thousands. You're gonna have proper fighting here. So let's do problem solution. That's the best solution for you, for everybody. Otherwise, we'll be crazy here. Trust me. Otherwise, you're gonna burn in here, fighting problem. It's thousands of people. Here, 20 of you. So, what?
in the car, we're doing that now.
What are you doing?
Stop it being moved. Start this bit out. We will be back to your cars.
What are you doing?
Go. We're moving things out the way. Things will be moving. Get back to the cars.
No. It's not like this. Because we had already like this. Go to your van, wait for test, everything. 1 hour test. No. We don't.
You just heard it from the boss. You just heard it from the boss. Take the car, and we'll get out. You've just heard it from the boss. Hang up. Go and sit the car, get ready to go.
Okay, when you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready to go home, please.
We're ready for you. We're ready long time ago.
I just want to start going back and start spreading the word.
I'm not going to go back into the car.
mobil di Kalegong di Sewu, ada mobil Jepang.
Motor KCC mot, kamu KCC kamu mau palit.
Itu sinar ya.
have a home for the holidays. That's after they lost almost everything in a house fire. Now, firefighters aren't sure what caused the Garcia home to go up in flames. Tori Mason spoke to the family who's now hoping for a Christmas miracle.
While most families spent the day sifting through presents,
someone knocked on our door and said, "Your house is out here burning."
The Garcia family sifted through ashes.
We were sitting at home watching a movie and wrapping our Christmas presents, and someone had banged on our window, and we got a little frightened.
That neighbor's visit is how Fifi Garcia learned her home was on fire 4 days before Christmas.
Our biggest concern was just getting out of the house.
Fifi and her siblings had to carry their grandmother to safety. Fortunately, no one was hurt. Their pain isn't physical.
The foundation under our house is ruined. Our whole deck is burned, and the siding on our house here is also burned.
They just finished paying off the house, and they don't have insurance. Inside the home is tons of water damage. Their couches and beds are ruined, and their clothes are soaked.
Our vehicle was damaged. It burned and melted in the front.
Their motorcycle is a complete loss. After a year full of chaos, now this family is trying to figure out where to go. They're wishing for a Christmas miracle, hopeful their community can help them have a happy-ish New Year.
We don't get to have a Christmas. We get to clean up the rest of our house and see what comes next.
Fifi is a student at Metro State University, and the school offered to put her family in a hotel through the end of the year, but these damages are going to take much longer to fix. The family has started a GoFundMe to help them get back on their feet. We have more information at cbsdenver.com. Reporting in Federal Heights, I'm Tori Mason, covering
Lincoln
Colorado
County issues a
First.
flood warning today after an ice jam released on the Roaring Fork River. This is video from a similar ice dam break in 2019, also on the Roaring Fork. The alert went out for the El Basalt and El Jebel areas. People were also warned to move away from the river and seek higher ground from Snowmass Canyon to Carbondale.
Dr. Adams is calling on faith leaders to help get the word out about getting vaccinated.
Fox 59's Courtney Crown shares the perspective of those who lead many in our community.
Assistant Rabbi David Grossbaum helps lead hundreds of local Jewish people at the Chabad Center for Jewish Life. When talking about the COVID-19 vaccines, he says it isn't a religiously complicated topic for them.
If someone's life's at risk, the entire Torah, the entire gamut of Jewish law can be abrogated. So in this case, coronavirus, obviously people's lives are at risk. If the vaccine will prevent any form of risk, you embrace it.
Grossbaum adds Judaism encourages people to follow the direction of doctors and scientists when it comes to the preservation of human life.
You're not going against God by curing any form of sickness by requesting the opinion and the directives of a doctor.
Jewish law also requires people to care for their own health and the health of others. This idea of the common good is shared among Catholics as well. Archbishop Charles Thompson says the U.S. Bishops' Conference, specifically the pro-life and doctrine committees, studied the vaccine before issuing their decision.
They have studied this, the moral implications of receiving the vaccine. They've cleared that for us, that we can morally receive that. As Catholics, we can morally receive that vaccine.
Both Orthodox Jewish and Catholic leaders put out public guidance on the vaccine recently, encouraging people to take it unless they have a medical reason. Experts welcome well-informed leaders helping to spread useful information.
So assuming the faith leaders have an understanding of the science that went into creating the vaccine and they appreciate what the vaccine can do for the population, I think it's a great opportunity for the faith leaders to talk about the we versus the me.
Courtney Crown, Fox 59 News.
Archbishop Thompson added if people don't want to take the vaccine, he hopes they will continue to maintain all of the health protocols so they and those around them.
In the 3 months after a CDC order on evictions took effect, Lewis and Clark County Justice Court received 23 complaints from landlords seeking to evict tenants. 16 of those were for failure to pay rent. The CDC order protects people from eviction if they've lost income or work due to COVID-19. They're making efforts to pay part of the rent, and they meet several other criteria. Governor Steve Bullock has a narrower directive, which includes only those who are in vulnerable populations and sheltering at home. The Montana Legal Services Association has been assisting renters in eviction cases. They say the state directive requires landlords to inform tenants they can claim it, but the CDC's doesn't have the same requirement.
So it's up to the tenants to find out about that.
The Montana Landlords Association has been critical of the eviction moratoriums, particularly the broader federal order. The group's president told MTN landlords are concerned their tenants are simply choosing not to pay. But MLSA says most renters they work with are doing all they can to keep up.
We've been trying to advise our clients, tenants all over Montana, to talk to their landlords. You know, communication really is important in this time where everybody's struggling. Landlords are struggling, tenants are struggling, and hopefully if the two can talk to each other and make a plan for how the tenant can get current on the rent, that's the best option.
It does appear the overall number of eviction cases in Lewis and Clark County will be down this year. Last year, Justice Court handled 186 of those cases, compared to just 116 this year through December 1st. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Church that has been a part of the bedrock in the Levittown community burst into flames this Christmas Day. Luckily, there were no services going on, but as CBS 2's Carolyn Gussoff reports, there is hope the house of worship can be saved.
Fire broke out around 11 a.m. Church Secretary Wendy Lantigua's phone began blowing up with messages.
I think it's Merry Christmas, so I'm not paying attention. And then I look and it's like, go, go, the church is on fire, run, run.
Church members came running to find their beloved Good Shepherd Lutheran Church on fire, a fixture on Hempstead Turnpike in Levittown for 70 years, in America's first suburb, on land donated by Levitt himself. Flames poured out of the roof. More than 125 volunteer firefighters quickly brought it under control.
Unfortunately, it was Christmas Day, but we serve every day of the year.
It appears to have started in a roof exhaust fan from an electrical malfunction. The church below, with its pews and pulpit, extensively damaged by smoke and water. Church Bishop Paul Egensteiner.
It's a tragedy. Christmas Day in 2020, of all times, you're looking for good things. There are good things, but this certainly is really painful.
This on Christmas Day, it's like it rips your heart out. It's our heart. It's the heart of the community. It's the heart of all the congregation that showed up here.
It's heartbreaking. We were just here last night.
We're here every day.
This is our second family, so this is very devastating for us.
A second home for more than 250 families, already a vow to repair and rebuild.
When you have faith, you can rebuild anything. It's a church building. It's not where God is. God is here. Yeah. God is with us.
Church members stopped by throughout Christmas Day to share their sorrow and see the damage. Thankful, though, that no one was hurt. No one was inside. In Levittown, Long Island, Carolyn Gussoff, CBS 2 News.
The holiday started in fear for more than 24 families forced out of their apartment by fire. Tonight, Jermont Terry got a first-hand look at just how quickly the smoke filled the Palos Hills building.
Could you imagine dealing with this on Christmas morning? This is so sad.
Heartache and panic for nearly 30 families at this Palos Hills apartment complex. They were awakened Christmas morning to the sounds of fire alarms and smoke-filled hallways.
The entire building, every unit had smoke filled in it.
Man, I feel so bad for people.
Jennifer Huffine stepped outside to find firefighters working to get things under control. She also spotted her neighbors freezing, forced outside on the coldest day of the season.
I ran into a couple about my age, and they had a turtle in their hands with a little towel. They had a corgi in the other hand. They grabbed what they could. They didn't have much. They were going to their car. They had tears in their eyes, and I just started crying for them because I felt so bad.
The Red Cross tells us 56 people, including 12 children, are among those displaced in this Christmas Day fire. Besides helping the families, the agency tried to bring a little holiday cheer.
There were some children that we were able to make at least a little bit happier. We did give out 12 Mickey Mouse toys.
And while this fire displaced the most people, Red Cross volunteers were exceptionally busy this holiday.
We've had 8 house fires today, house or apartment fires today.
Back in Palos Hills, it's believed the fire started in the laundry room near the boiler, but the exact cause remains under investigation. Jennifer is thankful the firefighters and Red Cross stepped in to help her neighbors.
It's terrible. It's terrible any time of the year, but especially Christmas.
While there's mostly smoke damage, the heat to these 30 units was cut off, and that's another reason no one is allowed inside. We can tell you that everyone survived and there were no injuries. In Palos Hills, Jermont Terry, CBS 2 News.
Eyes on one of the most flood-prone spots on the Pemi along the Plymouth-Holderness line. Days in advance of heavy rain on top of the snow, emergency crews took precautions in case the water rose to flood levels.
Within the last 2 days, we've notified everybody on North and South River Street. The PD notified all of the landowners. We've notified all of the stores. Plymouth State University has already closed the watertight doors on the ice arena. The Citgo station will come in and they'll take out their pumps. They'll take their food and everything out.
Other communities detoured travelers earlier in the day after wind and water caused problems. Christmas in Bethlehem, New Hampshire brought downed trees and scattered power outages. Hancock's DPW shared a photo of water-covered Old Dublin Road. Canaan asked drivers to pick another route. Alstead Fire and Rescue reminded people to turn around if they come across water-covered roads like this. Emergency crews want people to be cautious as they venture out this weekend.
Caution here, it's going to be colder tomorrow, so there's going to be a lot of ice. It'll take a lot longer for DOT to clean the road off if this freezes.
And the fire chief says if crews are out in the morning treating the roads or detouring traffic, give them some room and pay attention to any warning signs. In Holderness, Jean Mackin, WMUR.
People are cleaning up the mess around here after powerful storms blew through the region, leaving behind some significant damage. This is the soggy scene in Wilmington. Downpours flooded the 1300 block of East 12th Street this morning, stranding several vehicles in high water. We're told rescuers had to pull a few people from the cars, but thankfully no one was hurt. It's not just the heavy downpours, but also powerful wind gusts that toppled trees and brought down power lines, including here at Lincoln Drive and Gresham Valley Drive in Chestnut Hill. And over on Kelly Drive, the combination of water and downed limbs added obstacles for drivers to maneuver around. Tens of thousands spent Christmas in the dark because of the power outages. Eyewitness News reporter Alicia Roberts joins us from one of the hardest hit areas in West Norton. Alicia, good evening.
Kimberly, good evening. Take a look at what neighbors woke up to this morning. This tree completely ripped from its roots. We're estimating it measures about 75 feet tall. It's blocking the entire stretch of Juniata Road. And take a look, as that tree came crashing down, it ripped off the top of that power pole, which is now dangling from the wires. Amazingly, the lights are still on here. Everyone just grateful it wasn't any worse. Cleaning up on Christmas Day. Trees down, debris scattered, and decorations toppled in West Norton.
Just sideways rain.
Heavy rains flooded Nate Buckwalter's basement.
Like water just coming in.
Mark Rambo says the storm shook his home.
Really, we felt it hard just because we had new siding put up.
You could just see things blowing.
Sue Pasquarello telling us the high winds were so strong, she worried she was in the path of something more.
Everybody always says with a tornado you hear this loud rumbling, and it was very loud.
Across Egypt Road, crews were out early repairing this roof.
It peeled like a banana.
The roof ended up peeling over upstairs in my kids' room. They're in the front master bedroom right here, and there's leaks from the ceiling.
Homeowners describing the close call that caused their chimney to come crashing down onto a car and the driveway below.
I've never seen anything like it.
Chris Johnston and his team were on his second of 4 calls today.
Hopefully we'll be home by dinner time.
And as the expert, we had to ask him about the irony of a chimney falling on Christmas Eve.
I think it might have been Santa coming in a little hot.
And Chris wasn't the only one.
Santa ran into the chimney with his sled. That's what he did.
So whether it was the weather or something, rather someone else.
I wasn't here, but you know, it was Christmas night, so you never know.
One of the military's latest investments. It's a futuristic combat goggles that give soldiers a brand new way to see the battlefield. Not only can soldiers see in the dark, but they can see now through smoke and even peek around corners. Here's Martha Raddatz. Take a look.
It sounds like something out of science fiction.
Take it!
But the futuristic goggles these soldiers are wearing could transform the battlefield. A heads-up display, or HUD for short, allows soldiers to see terrain maps and an overhead compass in real time, helping to clear the fog of war.
You have like a little arrow pointing like, hey, go this way.
And if it is dark and smoky, no problem. The goggles can see right through it and literally around corners.
It's a fighting goggle that's supposed to, really upgrade situational awareness and the way that the men and women of the United States fight.
A complex system that is simple to use.
You can use a smartphone, you can use a system.
It is called IVAS, an acronym for the typically clunky military name for the device, the Integrated Visual Augmentation System. Based on Microsoft's HoloLens that uses holograms as teaching aids, IVAS is designed as a fighting goggle.
The future is here. This is going to fundamentally change the way we do business in the United States military.
ABC News was given exclusive access as the Army's top leaders and Microsoft's CEO saw firsthand what IVAS can do. So how exactly can it help fight the enemy? With no need for paper maps, soldiers can use the goggles to plan their missions.
I can see where my entire platoon is projected on a holographic map.
It also means better communication.
You can mark enemy positions and share that across the board.
In training to clear out rooms, soldiers will see realistic holograms of enemy fighters. And as they did here, watch a video game-like replay of their training to look for any mistakes.
It is a system overload almost, but whenever you get used to it, it becomes second nature.
The goggles a big improvement to the equipment they use now on the battlefield. Night vision no longer means looking through what looks like a straw, but a full 180-degree view. And with the turn of a knob, thermal technology does something night vision goggles can't do.
All of a sudden, smoke environments become clear as day.
Adding a scope to rifles gives troops an edge in dangerous urban warfare.
Say there's a wall right here, I can literally just peek my weapon around the corner, and whether I'm looking to the right, to the left, straight up, straight down, I have that picture in my view.
Troops testing the goggles pass suggested improvements to Microsoft engineers who are by their
gift
side.
For some of Colorado's healthcare workers, frontline workers in Pueblo, Steamboat Springs, and Grand County got their first doses yesterday. The state is working to distribute and administer the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine everywhere in our state. This map you see here from the health department shows the hubs for the vaccines, and the blue dots are where it'll be administered so far. Colorado makes up 2% of the U.S. population, so Colorado will be allocated 2% of the available
Stay
vaccine.
home. The CDC is urging people to celebrate New Year's Eve at home this year. The agency published new guidelines for the holiday recommending virtual celebrations. They say if you are gathering, stay inside, wear masks, and limit the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. The governor prioritizing seniors 65 and older, breaking with CDC guidance.
And now it's mostly up to hospitals to handle distribution. Let's go to Local 10's Glenna Milberg, live now in Miami Beach, to explain for us tonight. Glenna.
It is, Calvin. The hospitals are the entities that have the supplies. They are the distributors now. And ever since that executive order, the very specific one, came out yesterday, you can imagine hospitals have been inundated with requests. It's underway right now for seniors at Mount Sinai. This may well be the role model for the rest of the state. Liquid gold in the time of COVID.
We want to try to deploy as much vaccine as possible.
That's the CEO at Mount Sinai Medical Center, where the call is out to all seniors now eligible to make vaccination appointments. By all accounts, it's the first South Florida hospital to begin that for the oldest and most vulnerable.
There's been some great analysis done to show that if you vaccinate the bulk of the 70-plus population, the mortality on this goes really, really down.
The governor's new executive order clearly defines who is now eligible for the vaccine's next phase. Anyone 65 or older, and still medical staff that works with patients.
Or I have a 60-month-old at home. I have 2 older parents.
I want to make sure that, they know I'm protected, that I put a little less worry for them.
The executive order also gives hospitals discretion to vaccinate others deemed extremely vulnerable. The state dashboard shows as of midnight, more than 93,000 people have received their first dose. That doesn't include Thursday's numbers, and that age breakdown indicates only a fraction of Florida's 4 million plus seniors are among them yet.
We have an opportunity now as hospitals to bend the curve of this pandemic.
Between the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, this state has hundreds of thousands of doses, still a limited supply, relatively speaking, but batches are coming more and more. But this is a very specific population that is eligible right now in Florida. If you are in that eligible population, the best advice is to call your doctor or hospital. That's the distribution right now. And if you're not, the governor says you sit back and you wait and be safe. I'm Glenna Milberg, live in Miami Beach tonight, Local 10 News.
All right, Glenna Milberg clearing up.
That's what authorities believe about that massive RV explosion this morning in Nashville. Terrorism experts here in Chicago say in the early stages, this case has the signs of a demonstrative terrorism attack, meaning the person behind it wants attention. Our Charlie DeMar tonight with the investigation.
Tonight, tissue that police in Nashville believe could be human remains found amongst the debris left behind from that early morning RV explosion. It's unclear if they belong to the person behind the attack.
Evacuate now.
A warning to leave the area was given before the blast. The focus now shifting towards a motive.
There's usually a video post, there's usually a blog post, there's usually some sort of written communication left behind.
A motive could be revealed in the coming hours, says Robert Pape, a professor and director of the Chicago Project on Security and Threats at the University of Chicago, known best for studying suicide terrorism.
Motive comes directly from the perpetrator. There's no secret way that we have to kind of track motive.
You see this as terrorism?
I think I would say it's most likely demonstrative terrorism. That is an act of trying to threaten harm to others to bring attention to a political cause, where the goal was to create maximum attention, not to kill the maximum number of people.
Police say the blast was intentional and achieved its goal of creating chaos. This is the RV investigators need information on.
There's several factors that show you that the perpetrator went to efforts to minimize the damage.
Early, empty streets and Christmas morning. More than 40 buildings destroyed, 3 people taken to hospitals with non-life-threatening injuries. Police spent much of the day going through the damage.
If the police really thought that there was a perpetrator running loose through the city, this would turn into a manhunt a la the Boston bombing.
Federal and local police promising to find out who's behind the explosion that rocked Christmas morning. Charlie DeMar, CBS 2 News.
Chicago police say they are monitoring the situation, but right now say there's no credible threat.
COVID-19 has impacted just about everything in our lives. And tonight there are concerns that the impact could have reached the toys so many of your kids got as gifts this year. Fox 4's Rochelle Aline spoke to a lawyer and the Safety Commission. Rochelle?
This year put the commission into a bit of a catch-22 situation. How were they supposed to keep their inspectors safe while also keeping consumers safe? The solution they came up with is now getting some backlash from both lawyers and parents. Tonight, I spoke to a man who is both, and he shared some tips on how to make sure your child's toys are safe. Toy safety has come a long way.
We've seen a huge change from, it was sort of the Wild Wild West.
Attorney Kevin Hazlett says it's thanks to government regulations and agencies that have stepped in.
If you're a parent, there's never been a safer time to give a toy to their children than in 2020.
And though we've come so far, like so many things in 2020, even toy safety inspections were impacted by the pandemic. We've learned that due to COVID-19, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission had to change up its workflow, meaning inspectors were checking toys remotely and even from home for some time.
When you start shortcutting it, or you say, well, we're going to expect it from home, or normally we'd have 100 100 people looking at toys. This year, we can only get 50. That does add a layer of uncertainty with the safety of the toys.
The concern now is that while inspectors were working remotely to stay safe, faulty toys could have slipped through the cracks. But before you panic, Hazlett says you should do this instead.
So there's a message out there. I think parents need to be more vigilant.
His biggest piece of advice is to check the suggested age range for toys, as lawyers for personal injury cases often see these injuries.
Choking hazards are one. The other one we see are facial injuries.
And if your child does get hurt, Hazlett says it doesn't necessarily mean a lawsuit.
Just because you had a near-death experience, almost choked, almost put their eye out, doesn't necessarily mean that a lawyer gets involved. We're looking usually for injuries or serious injuries that altered the life of that child.
And the U.S. CPSC has sent us a full list of tips on how to make sure your child's toys are safe and who to contact if they're not. You can find that information on our website at fox4now.com. In Cape Coral, Rochelle Oline, Fox 4.
Thanks, Rochelle. And that Safety Commission also sent Fox 4 a statement in part that says protecting the American public from dangerous consumer products, as well as protecting the health and safety of agency staff, are of paramount importance to the CPSC during this unprecedented pandemic. Once scarce PPE equipment was finally secured, the agency
This morning,
moved to
Excedrin is recalling 433,000 bottles of its over-the-counter pain relievers. Some bottles have a hole at the bottom, posing a risk to children that could access and swallow those pills. The 5 affected products were sold between March and September of this year. So far, there have been no reported injuries, and bottles without holes can still be used, and customers can get a refund for
People
the damage.
are still feeling the impact of that powerful Christmas storm that swept through overnight. Here are the latest numbers. You can see thousands remain without power across New York, New Jersey, and in Connecticut. CBS 2's Corey James joins us live from Mount Vernon with more on the storm's aftermath. Corey.
And Alice, this is one of those areas impacted by the rain and wind gusts, and so far Con Edison says it has restored over 90% of its 36,000 customers who had their power go out. And some of those customers, though, say the outages are happening too often. Strong winds from a powerful storm left some New York City families sitting in the dark for several hours on Christmas Day. Michelle Clark lives in the Bronx near Ely Avenue and was forced to turn on her generator just to prepare dinner for her family.
It's a pain because we always lose power on the service road when we have strong winds.
It was the same story for next door neighbor Sandra Dale.
It's Christmas. I was cooking in the dark, and this has been going on for so long.
About a mile away along a Munson Avenue, utility crews were wrapping up restoration work. But this frontline worker says the ongoing problem reached a new level on this day.
I didn't get my dinner. I couldn't even cook. I couldn't even get something warm to eat, and I work hard. I deserve to have a Christmas when I take a day off.
Over in New Jersey, early morning wind gusts buckled the ground, uprooting this tree and sending it on top of a house. However, extensive damage was not the 78-year-old homeowner's only concern. By the afternoon, water was racing down his street from a water main break that resulted in hours-long repairs.
This is an act of God. You can only roll with the punches, so to speak, when it comes to Mother Nature.
While some are frustrated, they are also thankful service was brought back to them.
And I'm glad it's back on.
And hoping a permanent solution will be made to prevent it from happening again.
They really need to work on this area because there's a problem with the wiring around here.
And in response to the ongoing problems, Con Edison says it has invested and upgraded its systems, but says storms are happening more often, which are causing more problems. Reporting live in Mount Vernon, New York, Corey James, CBS 2 News.
Local versions of the 12 Days of Christmas song, and yet another one tonight from the staff of YK High School on the Big Island.
12 day of Christmas, the warriors gave to me 12 Christmas memories.
11 dancers dancing.
10 pairs of pajamas.
9 guessing games.
8 warrior rambles. 7 spirited stuff. 6 chores completed. 5 unmaskings. 4 warrior elfies. 3 ugly sweaters. 2 Christmas masks. And 1 red, green, white shirt and festivity. Merry Christmas!
All right. Oh, that's awesome. Merry Christmas to you.
To the pandemic now, a new strain of COVID-19 is sweeping the UK, and it has restrictions heightening here in the U.S. Starting Monday, travelers from Britain will have to show a negative COVID test before flying here. The CDC says the test will have to happen within 3 days of a passenger's trip, and that person must provide the results to the airline. So this new UK strain is actually one of 2 new variants in other countries that are raising concerns right now. But what about these new variants? Are they any more dangerous than what we've been seeing so far? And will our new vaccines be less effective against them? We went to the experts to find out.
The new COVID strains have other countries on high alert. This week, trucks headed from Britain to France backing up at a closed border. London passengers touching down here in the States greeted by local officials.
They made me fill out a form and they said they'd be in touch with me.
While more studies are needed to determine what the new variants mean for us all,
both of them look like they're more transmissible. We have more evidence on the transmission for the UK variant because we've been studying that with great detail with academic partners. We're still learning about the South African variant.
But while they do appear to transmit more easily, do they make people sicker?
It does mutate to the extent that it can alter its contagiousness, but it doesn't look like it's become more or less virulent, meaning capable of causing severe disease.
And what about the vaccine effectiveness? Will these new strains evade our new pandemic weapon? Well, this week, the CDC published a report on the 2 variants saying while it's possible, there's no evidence of this, and the virus would have to show several mutations in the spike protein that our vaccines target.
She just talked about more than 1,000 families are without power tonight. SDG&E shut off electricity to more than 1,100 customers, and thousands more are on standby. This is all because of those strong winds ripping through parts of the county, and that, of course, increases the risk of wildfires. ABC 10 News reporter Anthony Purra spoke with an East County family whose only light right now is coming from their Christmas tree.
I spoke with a mother in East County. She says her family is doing okay without power, but adds the timing of it so close to Christmas is just frustrating.
The whole house to the kitchen.
Leah Sio's home in Descanso is in the dark after SDG&E shut off their power Wednesday afternoon.
I have a 5-month-old, a 6-year-old, and a 5-year-old, so it's very complicated, but right now I'm using my Christmas tree to light up the house in the living room.
They have a small generator powering the tree. They also have some lanterns for light. SDG&E has warned more than 31,000 customers they could be impacted by potential public safety power shutoffs. The orange parts in this map are areas at risk of losing power. The red spots are areas that have already had it shut off. Strong Santa Ana winds in parts of the county increase the risk of a fire growing quickly should something spark. It's triggered a red flag warning through noon Thursday.
We're still staffed up just like we were in the middle of summer.
CAL FIRE says they have crews ready to move quickly should something flare up, saying dry conditions are an added concern.
A lot of times we see Santa Ana's going through December, and that part's nothing new for us. The struggle this time is that we have the Santa Ana conditions and we still have the fuels that are incredibly dry.
As for Leah's family, they just hope they'll have their power back on by Christmas Eve.
If they don't get the power back on by tomorrow, then we'll be wrapping in the dark. So, I mean, it is what it is. We'll survive, but it's a bummer.
Anthony Purra, ABC 10 News.
And there have already been 4 public safety power shutoffs by SDG&E so far this year. You can follow any changes in the forecast and stay one step ahead of these power shutoffs with the ABC 10 News app. You can find it for free. Crews are now using a controlled burn to get a handle on a 3,000-acre fire north of Fallbrook. Good evening, I'm Derek Stahl.
And I'm Jennifer Dela Cruz. Kim and Steve are off tonight. The fire broke out late last night, prompting mandatory evacuations and road closures. Here's a closer look at that area. It's northwest of Fallbrook and has burned onto Camp Pendleton. At last report, it was 0% contained, but no structures have been burned so far. ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer Kastner begins our team coverage with a look at the firefight.
Due to the fire, county officials issued a smoke advisory Thursday, impacting parts of North County around Fallbrook and Camp Pendleton.
Division Alpha, I want to try to release North County Engine 1.
Widespread evacuations and power outages from the Creek Fire, affecting thousands of San Diegans on Christmas Eve. Sky 10 overhead in the afternoon, getting images of the latest on the ground. Thousands of acres burned overnight through parts of North County, prompting those in Fallbrook and on Camp Pendleton to leave their homes. Thursday afternoon, the San Diego Sheriff's Department released video of its aerial attack, reporting its chopper made nearly 40 drops since after dawn. As of about 10 a.m. Thursday, fire officials said there was 0% containment, after previously stating it was 35% contained. Hundreds of firefighters have been battling the flames since they broke out just after 11 p.m. Wednesday near Duluth Road. Rough conditions proving challenging to fight. Ryan Rushing, Division Chief with Camp Pendleton Fire, said just after midnight, some families and service members on base had to get out.
The fires forced the evacuations as a precaution of the Duluth housing, O'Neill Heights housing, as well as the Lake O'Neill campgrounds.
7,000 people on the west side of Fallbrook were placed under mandatory evacuations in the early morning hours. Power was shut off overnight for 2,500 SDG&E customers, affecting parts of Alpine, Campo, Descanso, El Cajon, Potrero, and the Sycuan Reservation. Another 31,000 customers were put on standby. A red flag warning was in effect until noon Thursday, after it was issued Wednesday morning. The USO San Diego has been on site all day supporting the military families that were forced to flee their homes on base on Christmas Eve day. Jennifer Kastner, ABC 10 News.